Today, we're going to talk about a dangerous case playing out in Texas that will 100% impact the 2024 election, and I interview Governor Gavin Newsom about his recent debate with Ron DeSantis, his thoughts on Sean Hannity's obvious lack of impartiality, and how Fox News viewers reacted to it. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're watching No Lie. There's something jaw-dropping happening in Texas that isn't getting the coverage it deserves. So there is a young woman named Kate Cox, she's 31 years old, whose 20-week-old fetus has trisomy 18, which is a fatal genetic condition that'll mean her child won't live more than a few days outside of the womb. So according to the lawsuit, the pregnancy also puts her at risk for severe complications threatening her life and future fertility, including uterine rupture and hysterectomy. So she's seeking an exemption in court from the state's abortion ban, which does have narrow exceptions only to save the life or prevent substantial harm to the patient. But the language of this law is so vague and the threat of prosecution in Texas so extreme that in the first 9 months of this year, Texas recorded all of 34 abortions across the entire state. Compare that to back in 2020, before these restrictions were in place, there were more than 50,000. And so it might seem obvious that Ms. Cox is a prime candidate for this exception, and she was granted it by a district court judge in Travis County that issued a temporary restraining order to allow her doctor to perform the abortion without facing criminal or civil penalties. The judge has said in her ruling, quote, "The idea that Ms. Cox wants desperately to be pregnant and this law might actually cause her to lose that ability is shocking and would be a genuine miscarriage of justice." And so, this is pretty cut and dry. She is carrying a non-viable fetus. Continuing to do so won't make it any more likely that she'll have a baby that will survive, but it will endanger her ability to actually have a viable pregnancy in the future. And it puts her own health at risk right now. But Texas's far-right attorney general, that's Ken Paxton, who only just recently survived an impeachment effort from his own party, and this is the same Ken Paxton, by the way, who had used his office to file a lawsuit seeking to overturn the election results in 2020 in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Michigan. That Ken Paxton, he appealed this ruling to the Texas Supreme Court, which on Friday halted the lower court's ruling so that it could have more time to issue a final ruling. Paxton also warned both Ms. Cox's husband that he could be sued for helping his wife obtain an abortion under Texas's bounty law, and he warned the hospitals in the area that they could be sued for performing the abortion, also under Texas's bounty law. Paxton wrote in his appeal, quote, "Nothing can restore the unborn child's life that would be lost as a result." And he wrote that completely unwilling to acknowledge the reality that the child's life will already be lost because the fetus has a fatal genetic condition. And so now we're in this limbo where, this poor woman who's carrying a non-viable fetus is fighting for her life, literally fighting for her life, and this partisan hack of an attorney general has singled her out and threatened prosecution if she dares have agency over her own body. And let's be clear, this isn't just about this woman, Kate Cox, because there are tens of thousands of other women across that state who are seeing this process play out and who are watching these Republican officials throw the full weight of their offices behind these threats. And so that'll create a chilling effect where women who don't have the means or the willingness to defend themselves in court or to fly to a different state will have to put themselves in danger to carry what may very well be a dangerous pregnancy to term. Or, just as valid, to have a child when they're not ready to have a child. All at the hands of a political party that has the audacity to brand itself the party of freedom. And I know this is hard to hear. This is one of those stories that legitimately makes me sick. But it's important to hear it because this is the manifestation of Republican rule. Doesn't get much clearer than this. If they have power, this is what will happen. Hell, where they have power right now, this is already what's happening. We're already here. This is the dystopian future that all of us Democrats warned about, while Republicans told us not to be so hysterical. It took not decades, but months before the worst-case scenarios in these states started playing out. Fucking bounty laws to put $10,000 price tags on the heads of those who help a woman get an abortion. My God, in America in the year 2023. And mark my words, if this is what's happening, if this is what they're willing to do in the lead up to an election, just imagine what they'll do after, when they're not accountable to any voters. If this is what they're willing to do after losing elections predicated on abortion in Ohio and Kentucky and Virginia and Kansas, then clearly they're not concerned about the will of the voters. Clearly, this is about imposing their will on a population that doesn't want it. This is about dominance, it's about control, it's about power. And it's real, and it's happening in states across the country where Republicans are in charge. The fact is that we have one shot to reverse this tide. If Republicans are repudiated in 2024, then Democrats can undo these draconian laws and they can codify Roe at the federal level. But if Republicans win in 2024, they will take that as permission to plow ahead, knowing that there won't be a political penalty for stripping women of their bodily autonomy. And then it's off to the races. I'm covering this now because it is not normal, and I'm not willing to accept it as normal, and I'm certainly not willing to allow Republicans to normalize it. But I also know that if we don't talk about it, or if we lose hope, that Republicans can ride that disillusionment to more power in 2024 and beyond. And then what's happening to women like Kate Cox in Texas will seem quaint compared to the stories that we'll hear moving forward. So please, pay attention to stories like this and share stories like this, because if we don't do something about this now, we might not have the chance to do so in the future. Here's a preview of my interview with Gavin Newsom. Sean Hannity gave this whole monologue prior to the debate about how he would be a fair and impartial moderator. If Hannity was any more in DeSantis' corner, he would have asked Ron to tag him into the match. That's how obvious it was. So what was your reaction to Hannity's not so impartial debate performance?
I guess I've been around long enough I shouldn't have been surprised, but look, it is what it is, and it was what it was, and I'm still glad I did it, and I think it's important. Look, Fox doesn't get alternative points of view very often. It's this doom loop, and I thought it was important to get in there however we could, and to have 90 minutes interrupted, can't say it was uninterrupted, was, I think, at the end of the day, net positive regardless.
Now, it's worth noting that DeSantis was like one of those pull string dolls when it came to repeating the line about how many more Californians were moving to Florida. But you said that per capita, more Floridians moved to California than Californians are moving to Florida. And PolitiFact rated that as true. So what's your reaction to knowing that DeSantis' most potent attack against you was actually a lie?
No, I appreciate it. That wasn't the only one. I mean, it is remarkable. And I think it's the nature of, it's interesting you bring this not just that issue, that per capita last couple of years, more Floridians have moved to California than the other way around, which is, again, completely contra to his entire narrative and point. But it was many other points that he just simply said were a lie or untrue, or things that he asserted which were lies or untrue, that frankly, you get away with in politics nowadays. Because how many people, I appreciate you bringing it up, how many people read PolitiFact, followed up after that? They just move on to the next thing. And so folks get away with this. I even saw a Republican Party debate just the other night. Same thing. People just asserting facts that are not in evidence, that don't exist, that are not true. Yet you get away with it in that environment. So it's stubborn and it's hard. At the same time, you don't want to necessarily be in a debate where every single moment everybody pauses and says, well, hold on, we're going to fact check that and we'll be back after this commercial break. So I don't know what the right solution is to this, but it's a big issue.
When you find yourself holding up a poop map, as Ron DeSantis did, do you think that generally comes from a place of strength?
I'll tell you, I honestly, I'm not making this up, literally not making this up, because I had brought Ronald Reagan up earlier in the debate. And of course, I walk into his office, his old gubernatorial office every day. I looked at him, I just said, this is the guy that wants to be president of the United States. And he looked like a guy running for city council. I'm not kidding. District 2 in San Francisco, Board of Supervisors. I mean, that's an interesting campaign strategy. It wasn't just the poop map, it was the porn map. And, of course, we couldn't even bring in our own pens. And he brings in the poop map. I'll spare you the nuances on that, but or the particulars on that. But it was sad, I thought. I mean, again, the whole premise of the debate, what's this guy doing? Why are you? I even said that. I said, I know why I'm here, but Ron, why are you here? You're running for president of the United States. I'm not. I'm a governor of the state of California, and you're spending 90 minutes talking about things, the parochial things like that. And so I thought it was a missed opportunity for him, and it just reinforced why he's not qualified to be president of the United States.
To watch the full interview with Gavin Newsom, click the thumbnail right here on the screen or check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel. You can also listen to the audio version of this episode by clicking that link on the screen. And finally, to see more of my content, the subscribe button's on the screen as well.